Somewhere beneath the noise of your daily life, beneath the appointments, the obligations, the endless scrolling through a world that never quite feels like home, there is a frequency that hums, quiet, persistent, ancient, and deep within that frequency, there is a knowing, not a thought, not a belief, something older than both, a knowing that you are not here by accident. You have felt it, haven't you? In the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, in the silence after everyone has gone to sleep, in that strange hollow ache that settles in your chest when you look up at a night sky full of stars and feel, somehow, that you are looking at something familiar, like a landscape you have visited in dreams, like a language you once spoke but can no longer quite pronounce. You have felt the sensation that this life, this particular configuration of you, carries a weight that cannot be measured by anything the world has handed you to measure with. Not your job title, not your bank account, not the roles you were assigned before you were old enough to question them. Something in you has always whispered, "This is not all there is." And here is what is true. That whisper is not anxiety. It is not existential crisis. It is not something to be managed or medicated or talked out of in a therapist's office, though there is nothing wrong with any of that. That whisper is memory. You are waking up, not in the way the world talks about waking up, not becoming more productive, more optimized, more aligned with some version of success that someone else designed for you. No, you are waking up in the way that a soul wakes up, slowly, painfully, beautifully, like light pressing through the thinnest crack in a wall that has been sealed for a very long time. And the very fact that you are here, in this moment, watching this, feeling the words land somewhere deeper than your mind, means that the crack has already opened. The light is already coming through. You did not stumble onto this by accident. Nothing about where you are right now is accidental. There are souls moving through this earth right now, millions of them, who carry something that cannot be explained by biology or background or circumstance. Souls who have always felt different, not better, not superior, just different. Like they arrived carrying a blueprint that no one else could see, like they spent their entire childhood looking for the instructions to a life that didn't come with any. Maybe that was you. Maybe you were the child who asked too many questions, who felt the emotions of others as if they were your own, who looked at the way the world worked and thought, quietly, privately, in spaces you never shared with anyone, this cannot be right. This cannot be all of it. Maybe you were drawn to the mysteries, to the edges of things, to the spaces between what is known and what is simply felt. Maybe loss came for you earlier than it should have, or harder than it should have, and rather than breaking you completely, it cracked you open. And in that opening, something ancient began to breathe again. If any of this is landing in a place you have no words for, if something in your chest is quietly saying yes, then let that frequency be known. Press like, not as a gesture toward an algorithm, but as a signal, a small act of alignment, a way of saying, I hear this, some part of me remembers this. And if you have not yet joined this space, this ongoing transmission, then let this be the moment you do. Because what is unfolding across these messages is not content. It is a conversation between you and the part of yourself you have been waiting to meet again, long before you had this body, long before you had this name, this face, this particular story. You made a choice, not under pressure, not out of obligation, but from a place of such profound love and such radical courage that the very memory of it buried now beneath layers of forgetfulness, beneath the veil that every soul agrees to wear when they arrive here, would bring you to your knees. You chose to come here. You chose this. And the question that has haunted you, the one that rises in the quiet moments when the world isn't loud enough to drown it out, the question that sounds something like, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? That question is not a crisis. That question is a compass. Drop the word remember in the comments below. Not because it is a trend, not to perform awakening for anyone watching, but because somewhere in the act of writing that single word, something in you will stir. Something that has been waiting, something that knows, that has always known exactly why you are here. Before this life began, before your mother held you for the first time, before your lungs filled with air, before you learned your name or your language or the particular shape of the world you were being born into, there was a conversation, not the kind that happens in rooms with chairs and tables, not the kind that uses words the way we use them here, small, limited, pressed into meaning by the weight of a world that can only hold so much. This was a conversation that happened in light, in frequency, in knowing, in the language that exists between souls when there is no body to translate through, no ego to filter, no fear to distort the signal. And in that conversation, in that luminous, timeless space that some have glimpsed in moments of deep meditation or near death, or in the hollow seconds just before sleep pulls you under, you agreed to something. You signed something, not with ink, not with trembling hands, with the fullness of everything you were. The ancient teachers called it many things across many traditions. A soul contract, a pre-birth agreement, a sacred commission. The specifics differed. The maps were drawn differently in different lands, in different centuries, in different tongues, but the territory they were all describing was the same. The idea, the memory really, that we do not arrive here empty, that we do not tumble into bodies the way leaves tumble from trees, random and directionless, subject only to whatever wind happens to be blowing. We arrive assigned, not in the way that word might make you flinch, not assigned by some external authority who holds power over you, not conscripted or commanded, but assigned the way a musician chooses a particular piece to master, the way a healer chooses the wound they are most equipped to understand, chosen, work, freely taken on, because at the level of soul, at the level where you existed before all of this, you could see something that you cannot see from here. You could see the shape of what was needed. There is a body of work, vast, quiet, revolutionary in the way that only truth can be revolutionary, gathered across decades of sleep hypnotic regression sessions, where ordinary people were guided beneath the surface of their conscious minds and began to speak in voices that knew things they had never been taught. They spoke of councils, of planning spaces, of choosing families, choosing challenges, choosing the specific texture of pain that would serve as the pressure needed to form something precious. They spoke of agreements made with other souls, souls who would later become their greatest loves, their deepest wounds, their most transformative teachers, souls who agreed to play difficult roles not out of cruelty, but out of love so vast it cannot be held inside a human heart without cracking it open. And again, in session after session, across cultures and continents and decades, these ordinary people, guided into the depths of their own consciousness, returned with the same message. We came here on purpose. We came here with purpose, and the forgetting the veil was part of the design. Think about that for a moment. The forgetting was not a flaw. The veil that falls across your memory when you enter this life, the one that makes you feel lost, disconnected, like a stranger in a world that should feel like home, was not a punishment or a mistake or a cosmic oversight. It was agreed to, because a soul who remembers everything cannot truly learn, cannot truly choose, cannot genuinely grow in the way that only genuine uncertainty makes possible. You had to forget so that you could remember. You had to lose yourself so that the process of finding yourself would mean something. Every moment of confusion you have ever lived through, every dark night of the soul, every season where you searched for meaning in places that could not contain it, none of that was wasted. None of it was random. It was the curriculum, and you designed it yourself. This is why the feeling never left you, even in your most disconnected seasons, even when you buried the questions under busyness, under relationships, under substances or ambitions, or the particular brand of numbness that modern life hands out so freely. Something remained underneath all of it, patient, unmovable, a sense that there is something you are supposed to be doing here, not in the hustle culture sense, not in the productivity sense, not the anxious, grasping, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Have I achieved enough sense that the world has trained you to feel as a substitute for genuine purpose? Something quieter than that, something that does not shout, but never fully goes silent, a thread. And if you have ever followed that thread, even for a moment, even just far enough to feel it pull back, you know exactly what it feels like to brush against the edges of your real mission here. It feels like recognition. It feels like home. You chose a family that would shape specific wounds, because those wounds would become your greatest areas of understanding. You chose circumstances that would strip away certain illusions, because only in their absence would you be able to see what was real. You chose a time in history so particular, so precise, so charged with the specific kind of pressure that forces awakening, that you had to be ready before they let you through. And they did let you through. Here you are. The souls who are drawn to transmissions like this one are rarely here by casual interest. They are not stumbling through the internet, half present, looking for background noise. They are looking for the thread. They are feeling the pull of something they cannot name and following it quietly, persistently, the way certain birds navigate by magnetic fields invisible to every instrument except the one built into their own bones. You are navigating. You have always been navigating. And here is what the deepest levels of consciousness, accessed not through philosophy, but through direct, trembling, first-hand experience, have confirmed across thousands of individual accounts that should not agree with each other as perfectly as they do. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being, ancient, vast, luminous, who agreed to compress yourself into the magnificent limitation of a human experience because something here needed what only you could bring, not someone like you, with your exact history, your exact wounds, your exact particular combination of gifts and resistances, and the precise way your heart breaks open when something true is spoken. That specificity is not incidental. It is the whole point. Tonight, before the day fully releases you, sit with this question, not in your mind. Lower it deeper than that. Let it sink into your chest, into that quiet place beneath the heartbeat. What did I agree to bring here? Don't force an answer. The answer is not a thought. It is a feeling that will rise when you stop trying to think your way to it. Let it rise. There is something nobody tells you about being chosen. It does not feel like an honor. Not at first. Not in the middle of it. It feels like weight, like a pressure that has no name and no clear source, like carrying something enormous through a world that cannot see what you are carrying and would not know how to help you set it down even if it could. It feels like being different in a way you were never allowed to fully explain. Not different in the ways the world celebrates, not prodigy different, not exceptional in obvious ways different, different in the way that makes people uncomfortable without knowing why, different in the way that made you learn early to make yourself smaller, to translate yourself into something more digestible, to file down the edges of what you were so that the people around you could hold you without flinching. You learned to perform belonging while quietly, privately, feeling like a visitor. And here is what that visitor feeling actually was. It was true, not in the way that should make you feel alienated or superior or disconnected from your humanity, but true in the way that all deep feelings are true, as signals, as information, as the soul's way of pressing its fingerprints against the glass of your conscious mind and saying, remember, remember, remember. You were not built for full assimilation into a world that is still asleep. You were not designed to dissolve completely into the current of consensus reality, to accept its ceilings as your ceilings, its definitions as your definitions, its measure of what a life should look like as the measure of yours. You were sent here to disturb the water gently, powerfully, precisely, the way a single stone dropped into a still lake sends ripples to every edge. Long before this body, long before this particular chapter of existence, there was a gathering, not a metaphor, not a poetic device, a genuine convening of consciousness at a level so far beyond what the human mind can fully translate, that every tradition which has ever caught a glimpse of it has reached for different words to describe the same blinding, luminous reality. Councils, elders, guides, the higher self, the between, call it what resonates. The name is not the thing is the thing. And what has been described again and again by people who had no reason to agree with each other, who came from different continents and different centuries and different lifetimes of experience, is a space where souls in their full awareness make deliberate, informed, loving choices about where to go next, what to learn, what to heal, what to carry forward, what to offer. And at certain moments in the vast arc of planetary evolution, moments of great pressure, great transition, great potential, a particular kind of soul volunteers for something extraordinary, not because they are the most powerful, not because they are without fear, without wound, without the full terrifying vulnerability of incarnation, but because they are ready, because they have gathered enough across enough lifetimes, enough lessons, enough accumulated wisdom pressed into the grain of their soul to be useful at exactly this moment, in exactly this way. You are living in one of those moments. This is not dramatic language designed to make you feel significant. This is not spiritual flattery. This is the assessment of consciousness itself, delivered through every tradition that has ever looked clearly at where humanity stands and what is being asked of it. The earth is in a process, not destruction, not apocalypse, not the end of something, though endings are part of it, as they are part of everything that transforms. a shift, a recalibration, an expansion of frequency that the planet itself has been moving toward for longer than any single human civilization has existed. And into this moment, into this specific, charged, extraordinary window of time, an unusually high number of souls agreed to come. Old souls, ancient souls, souls who carry in their energetic memory the accumulated wisdom of civilizations that rose and fell before recorded history began. Souls from frequencies so refined that compression into human form requires a kind of courage that cannot be fully understood from inside the compression itself. They came anyway. You came anyway. This is why sensitivity has been both your gift and your wound, because a soul carrying fine-tuned instruments feels everything, the beauty and the devastation both, the extraordinary and the unbearable both. You did not choose sensitivity as a personality trait. You arrived with it as equipment, calibrated precisely for the work you came to do. The empathy that sometimes makes it hard to be in crowded spaces, the way certain music bypasses your mind entirely and goes straight to something underneath. The tears that come without warning when you witness someone else's truth. The inexplicable grief you sometimes feel for a world you are simultaneously in love with. These are not weaknesses. These are instruments, finely tuned, carefully chosen, packed for the journey by a version of you that knew exactly what the terrain would require, and the pain, the particular architecture of your pain, the losses that came at angles you were not braced for, the relationships that cracked you open before you understood why you needed to be cracked, the seasons of darkness that lasted longer than seemed survivable. And yet, here you are, survived, changed, carrying something now that you did not carry before. Nothing that has happened to you has been wasted, not a single wound, not a single winter. Every point of fracture was also a point of entry for light, for depth, for the particular quality of understanding that can only be earned through living it. Your biography is not a series of unfortunate events. It is a curriculum designed by the part of you that could see what you were being prepared for. This is why you cannot fully commit to smallness. This is why no matter how many times life has handed you reasons to contract, to give up, to settle, to accept a version of yourself that fits more comfortably into the spaces others have prepared for you, something keeps expanding, keeps reaching, keeps pressing outward against whatever container has been placed around it. That is not restlessness. That is not ingratitude. That is not some character flaw to be corrected or a wound to be managed. That is your mission, refusing to be contained. Close your eyes for a moment, just a moment, and imagine, not with effort, but with the soft, receptive part of your awareness, a version of you that exists at a level above this life, above this story, a version of you that can see the whole arc of what you are doing here and why. Imagine that version of you looking at this moment, at you, here, now, receiving this, and imagine what that version of you feels. Not disappointment, not impatience, not the judgment you have perhaps learned to anticipate. Pride, a vast, quiet, luminous pride. Because you are still here, because you kept going through the seasons that would have justified stopping, because the mission, even buried, even veiled, even half remembered at best, never fully left you, and you never fully left it. Here is something that will rearrange something inside you if you let it land fully. You have already been doing it. The mission you have been searching for, the purpose you have been aching toward, the reason you came, that you have been turning over in your hands like a stone you cannot quite read. You have already been living it, not in spite of the confusion, not after the confusion resolves itself into something neat and nameable, and finally clear. Inside the confusion, through the searching, as the person who could not stop asking the questions that most people around them had already decided were too inconvenient to keep asking. The mission was never waiting for you at some future destination. It has been woven into every moment you chose depth over surface, every moment you refused to numb yourself completely, every moment you extended a genuine understanding to someone who was breaking in ways the world could not see. Every moment you stayed awake when sleep would have been so much easier. Long before the teachers put words to it, long before any tradition built walls around it and called it doctrine, there was an understanding, moving through the most awakened streams of human consciousness, like a current beneath a current, that certain souls arrive on earth not primarily to achieve something, but to anchor something, to hold a frequency, to be a living tuning fork pressed against the fabric of collective human experience, vibrating at a pitch that reminds the field, the vast, interconnected field of human consciousness that we all swim in without fully realizing that there are other possibilities, that love is not naive, that depth is not impractical, that the invisible is not imaginary, that there is more, that there has always been more. You have been doing this without knowing it had a name. In every conversation where you said the true thing instead of the comfortable thing and watched something shift in the person across from you, in every moment of genuine presence, you offered to someone who had forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen. In every time you chose to feel it fully instead of pushing it down, because something in you understood beneath conscious articulation that unfelt feeling doesn't disappear, it just goes underground. And underground it poisons. You have been doing healing work, not necessarily in the formal credentialed sense, though perhaps that too, but in the older sense, in the sense that every tradition which has ever understood the nature of human suffering recognizes the healer is not the one with all the answers. The healer is the one who is willing to sit in the darkness with another person and not flinch. The one who has traveled enough of their own darkness to know that it has an other side. The one whose presence alone communicates what words often cannot. You are not alone in this. This is survivable. There is light beyond what you can currently see. And I know because I have been somewhere like this, and I came back carrying it. There is a particular kind of soul, and if you have stayed with this transmission this long, you are almost certainly one of them that chose to come into this life through difficulty, specifically because difficulty was the fastest path to the kind of compassion that cannot be performed. The compassion that lives in the body, that lives in the nervous system, that does not have to think its way to empathy because it remembers the terrain. You did not have a difficult childhood or a painful relationship or a season of loss that rewrote you because life was being unkind to you specifically. You chose entry points that would compress into you the exact qualities the work required, and the work requires someone who knew from the inside what it feels like to be lost, what it feels like to search and not find, to cry and not understand why, to feel the gap between who you are and who the world wants you to be, and to live inside that gap for long enough that you built something there, something real, something unshakable, something that now, whether you have named it yet or not, you carry as a gift into every space you enter. The world is not short on information. It is not short on intelligence or strategy or systems or solutions that work perfectly well on paper. What the world is short on, desperately, achingly short on, is presence. Genuine, grounded, undefended human presence. People who have done enough of their own inner work that they do not need the moment to be different than it is. People who can sit with what is hard without immediately trying to fix it, flee it, or explain it away. People whose nervous systems have become, through the particular alchemy of their own lived experience, a kind of safe harbor. You are being called to be that. Not perfectly, not without your own continued unfolding and healing and growth, but now, in the imperfect, still becoming version of yourself that exists in this moment, because the world does not need you to be finished before it needs what you carry. It needs what you carry now, and this is where the mission becomes practical, not as a set of instructions, never that, but as an invitation into a different way of moving through the days you are given. Tonight, before sleep pulls you under, try this. Lie still. Let the day fall away from you layer by layer. Let your body remember what it is like to be held by the earth beneath you, even through floors and mattresses and all the insulation of modern life. Feel the weight of yourself, the realness of yourself, and then, softly, without pressure or performance, ask inward, where am I already serving the mission without knowing it? Where is my presence already making a difference I cannot see? What have I been dismissing as ordinary that is actually sacred? Do not reach for answers. Do not construct them. Do not evaluate or edit what arises. Just ask, and then breathe, and then listen in the way you listen to something far away, not with effort, but with a quality of open, patient attention. Something will come. Not as a voice necessarily, not as a vision, perhaps as a warmth in a particular part of your chest, perhaps as the unexpected image of a person whose face rises in your mind without obvious reason, perhaps simply as a feeling, quiet, steady, unmistakable. Yes, there, that. Because here is what the deepest accounts of souls who have glimpsed the space between lives confirm. In language that varies, but meaning that does not. The missions that matter most are rarely the ones that look significant from the outside. The ripples that travel farthest often begin in the quietest moments, a conversation that happened to occur at the exact right time. A piece of writing, perhaps this one, that reached the exact right person in the exact right season of their unraveling. A child raised with the specific quality of love that breaks a generational pattern that has been running for 200 years. You may never see the full shape of what you are doing here. That is not a failure of vision. That is the nature of the work. You plant, others water. Something vast and patient and loving beyond all human comprehension tends the field. And the harvest comes. You did not need to be famous for this. You did not need to be powerful in the ways the world measures power. You needed to be present, awake, willing, carrying what you carry without apology, without shrinking, without waiting until you are more healed or more certain or more ready than you feel right now. You are ready now. You have always been ready. The readiness was built into the design. You have arrived at the end of something and the beginning of something else. That is always how it works. Every genuine ending is simply a threshold wearing a different face. And if you can feel, even faintly, even beneath the noise of everything your mind wants to do with what it has just received, If you can feel something settling into you that is quieter and more certain than anything that was there before you pressed play, then you already know this was not content. This was not information delivered to your mind for storage and later retrieval. This was a frequency. And something in you, the part that chose to be here, the part that signed the contract, the part that packed its instruments carefully before compression into this extraordinary, limited, luminous human form, that part of you has been vibrating in recognition this entire time, not learning, remembering. There is a moment that comes in the life of every awakening soul, and it does not announce itself with trumpets or visions or the dramatic revelations that spiritual stories are sometimes told through. It comes quietly, in an ordinary moment, in a Tuesday, in the space between one breath and the next. It is the moment when the searching shifts, when the desperate outward grasping for the teacher, for the sign, for the external confirmation that you are on the right path, that you matter, that your life has direction and meaning and is building towards something real, when all of that, exhausted finally by its own futility, goes still. And in that stillness, you find what was never lost, only covered, only quieted beneath the accumulated weight of a world that forgot long ago how to tell its children who they really are. Long before this civilization built its cities and its certainties, long before the current story of what a human life is supposed to look like was written and handed to you as if it were the only story, souls like yours were already doing this work. In other bodies, in other times, in other languages spoken around fires that have long since gone to ash. They held the frequency when the frequency was difficult to hold. They remembered when remembering was dangerous. They planted seeds in soils they would never live to see bloom, because they understood something that the most awakened part of you understands now. The work is not for this moment only. The work is for the long arc, for the generations not yet born who will stand somewhere in some future that none of us can fully see, and feel the ground beneath their feet and not know why it feels more solid than it should, not knowing that it is solid because of what you anchored here, because of what you refused to abandon even when abandoning it would have been so much easier, because of what you kept alive in yourself, that small, persistent, unextinguishable flame of knowing, when everything around you was designed to convince you it was not real. You are part of something so much larger than this lifetime, so much larger than this particular chapter of your story, with its specific cast of characters, and its specific wounds, and its specific beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary dailiness. You are a thread in a tapestry that has been in weaving for longer than human history can account for, and the pattern is becoming visible now, not just to mystics and seers and the rare souls who have always been able to see beyond the veil, but to ordinary people, accountants and teachers and parents and teenagers lying awake at 3 a.m, feeling something they have no framework for. People who would never have described themselves as spiritual, finding themselves drawn, inexplicably, toward questions they cannot explain and transmissions they should not, by any ordinary logic, feel so recognized by. The veil is thinning. This is not metaphor. This is the most accurate description available in human language for something that is genuinely, measurably, palpably occurring in the field of collective human consciousness right now. And you, drawn here, awake in this moment, feeling what you are feeling as these words move through you, you are part of why. So let this be said clearly in the closing of this transmission with all the love that a frequency can carry through the limited vessel of language. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too confused or too wounded or too far behind some imagined schedule of awakening that you have been measuring yourself against with the specific cruelty that only the awakening soul can inflict upon itself. You are not behind. You are precisely on time. In fact, and let this land where it needs to land, you could not be more exactly where you are supposed to be than you are in this moment, reading this, feeling this. Whatever is moving in your chest right now, whatever quiet shift is occurring somewhere beneath the reach of your conscious mind, this is it. This is the work. Not the dramatic version, not the version with the mountain and the vision and the sudden blinding certainty that reorganizes everything overnight. The real version, the quiet, unglamorous, extraordinarily courageous version. A soul in a human body, in an ordinary moment, choosing to remember, choosing against everything that conspires toward forgetting to stay awake. Tonight, in the last moments before sleep takes you, do something simple. Place one hand on your chest. Feel the beat beneath your palm, that ancient, faithful, extraordinary rhythm that has not missed a single moment of your entire life, that has kept going through every season, every loss, every dark night, every ordinary Tuesday. And breathe, just breathe. And in the exhale, not as a prayer exactly, not as a command, but as a gentle, trusting release, let this thought move through you. I know why I am here, even if I cannot yet put it into words. I know, and the knowing is already working through me, and I trust it, and I am ready, not forced, not performed, just offered. Into the space that exists between what you know and what you are still becoming, into the field that has been holding you carefully, patiently, with a love that makes human love look like a rough draft since before you arrived in this body. Let it receive you. You have been reaching outward for so long. Let yourself be held for a moment. You have earned that. You did not find this message by accident. Nothing about this moment is accidental. The soul that chose this life, with all its specific weight and beauty and difficulty and grace, that soul knew there would be moments of doubt so deep they would feel like permanent states, knew there would be seasons of forgetting so complete that the very idea of mission or purpose or chosen work would seem like a fantasy constructed by people who had not yet been broken in the right places, and that soul came anyway, packed the instruments, accepted the veil, stepped through, trusting that on the other side of all that forgetting there would be a thread, and that if it followed the thread, through all the noise and confusion and distraction and the endless seductive comfort of staying asleep, it would find its way back to exactly this knowing, this frequency, this quiet, unshakable, ancient, luminous recognition. I am here on purpose. I am loved beyond measure. The mission is already alive in me, and I am ready. If this transmission has moved something in you, if something that was sleeping has stirred, then this space is yours to return to. Not as a follower, not as a subscriber in the hollow, mechanical sense that word has been reduced to, but as a soul continuing its remembering. Every transmission here is another thread, another frequency, another invitation to go deeper into what you already know but have not yet fully reclaimed. Come back when the thread pulls you. It will pull you. You are the chosen one, not because you were selected above others, but because you chose. And that choice, made in light, before memory, before this body, before this name, is still choosing. Right now, through you, as you,